of schools.
And I now recognize Ms. King for your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chair Bonamici, Ranking Member Comer, and members of the subcommittee. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about community-based child abuse prevention, or CBCAP. I serve as the Director of Family Support Programs at Washington State's new Department of Children, Youth, and Families, and am the CBCAP State Lead in Washington. Thanks to CBCAP, Washington State served 1,698 parents and 2,153 children with family support services in 12 out of 39 counties last year. We still have a long way to go in reaching all of the children and families who could benefit from CBCAP services and systems building efforts, but that task would be difficult and less effective without CBCAP funding. Brain science tells us that laying a strong foundation early in life critically impacts healthy development. Science also tells us that addressing trauma at the individual, family, and community levels allows us to prevent bad things from happening, promote strengths in children and families, and intervene early. In our everyday work, this means we notice the important things. We identify the tremendous stress, pressure, and uncertainty that leaves parents feeling alone, unconnected, and ashamed. CBCAP is designed to create environments where families get the support they need before harm occurs. This supports children on a positive trajectory to reach their full potential in school and life. This work includes parental skills building, voluntary home visiting programs, self-help programs, coordination and connection with mental health and substance use services and other family supports. Prevention requires a highly integrated, multi-systemic public health approach. Just as we don't wait for someone to show signs of the flu before we encourage them to get a flu shot, we shouldn't wait for warning signs that a family needs support before making sure they have that support. In 2018, Washington's newest state agency formed, combining the strengths of an early learning department and child welfare services into one unified agency. A two-generation approach informed by brain science leverages CBCAP funding for families receiving TANF benefits to offer home visiting services and parenting education. Experiencing success in education, employment, and parenting can break the intergenerational cycle of poverty. We offer specific programs shown to be effective with tribal populations and are working extensively to build pathways for new moms to get the support that they need while experiencing perinatal mental health challenges like postpartum depression. These are a few examples of how my state uses its CBCAP funding. As a chapter of Prevent Child Abuse America and member of the National Alliance of Children's Trust Funds, I have a front row seat to witness the extraordinary work being done by my colleagues around the country and in each of your own states. The flexibility in CBCAP provides options for communities to implement evidence-based, evidence-informed, and promising practices. CBCAP awardees can tailor their programs to serve the needs of their communities while evaluating programs, measuring outcomes, meeting fidelity, and adhering to implementation science principles to achieve the positive child and family outcomes. States have said they need flexibility to use federal funds to help families sooner, before serious danger arises or harm occurs. As far as resources, CBCAP represents the main federal investment in primary prevention for the entire country, with an investment of $39 million over all 50 states in 2018. This funds prevention at 53 cents per child per year, resulting in a great deal of unmet need. The current funding in Washington State allows 10 to 12 local organizations to offer small-scale programs with more than 90% of qualified applicants turned away. DCYF, my agency, recently identified 23 small locales with highest rates of abuse or neglect that we're not able to serve due to funding constraints. With more funding for prevention, we would work within each community to build community-driven interventions using a targeted universalism approach to increase services available in communities at known risk. This is prevention at its best, and it requires resources. The pursuit of the goal of strengthening families is through primary prevention, strong and responsive communities, and collaborative efforts among public health, early learning, and child welfare. Every parent wants to be a good parent. They just need the tools and supports to get them there. Families describe this work as raising their children with opportunities to achieve their hopes and dreams. I say it helps families live their best lives. I appreciate your time and attention this afternoon, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I now recognize Mr. Thomas for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Early in life is important. Could you address the importance of addressing trauma in individual, family, and community levels, and how we have to have family-serving systems be trauma-informed?
Yes, I can. I think for us, especially on the early learning side of the spectrum, again, during that critical time of brain development, and the critical time where children learn that their needs can be met by a caregiver, that we look at all of the places that those children and family interact with and make sure we have standards for what that looks like to both be trauma-informed and also healing-focused. We'd like to look at what our settings and environments are doing to promote healing among parents and children. One of the key strategies that has been used and is being implemented in a lot of states is building trauma-informed care in child care and early learning settings. So we have child care providers that understand when a child comes in and is struggling and having a hard day, that it's not aimed at the teacher, it's not aimed at the child care provider, it's the child working on trying to regulate their emotions and deal with some things that are happening with them. It helps us with thinking about how we can build that capacity in our full system so that the places that those children are during the day, they get that positive experience and build relationships with trusting adults.
Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Dr. Fox from North.
Ms. King, I'm sorry I was not here to introduce you. My question is for you. As the lead CBCAP entity in Washington, you're the primary funder of child abuse and neglect prevention programs in our state. And in your testimony, you talked about a coaching program for parents, and then you also mentioned a two-generation approach. And I was wondering if you could talk about this coaching program for positive discipline and what the interaction looks like between the coach and the parents, between the parents and the children. And then we'll see if I have time for another question.
Thank you. Yeah, we like to use the word parent coaching because sometimes if we use the word parent visitor or parent educator, people view it as top-down messaging, and really coaching the parent has to do with the interaction between the parent and child that someone's helping to support. So yes, there's pieces that have to do with knowledge, but it's actually a lot about attitudes, skills, and behavior. So if you were working with a program that focuses on infants, you'd expect that coach to work a lot on attachment issues. That serve and return tennis term about a child making some communication and a parent being able to respond, starting that very early brain development. For toddlers, I would say one of the most typical things we see with parent coaches is trying to understand what's expected of a toddler, where they are developmentally. They just can't share right away. And working with toddlers on again, regulating emotions, being able to have words for feelings, and for parents not to get triggered. So developing that capacity in parents to be calm and be able to address what's going on with their child. So the coaching really is about side-by-side work, noticing the strengths, and building on those.
Does the coach in these interactions, I'm imagining them at a family's home, watching the interaction between the parents, do they model it at the same time? Do they check in afterwards and say, here's what I observed, try this next time? All of the above?
Yes, I think they can. I think a lot of our programs are really trying to focus on seeing what the parent's already doing and help the parent notice that. Again, with that notion that looking at strengths. But there's lots of side-by-side coaching because a parent, wants a do-over. They got worked up and it was hard for them to deal with something with the child, and to be able to say, that's okay. Let's think about how you could try that the next time. So I think we get some of both, but again, sort of scaffolding. Sometimes it's about how a parent's experiencing their child, and sometimes it's actually about skills and behaviors that a parent needs to practice to work with a particular age.
Have you seen, even maybe within a family, a difference in outcomes, kindergarten readiness, later success in life between, say, the first or second child that didn't have, where the parent didn't have this kind of coaching, and then subsequent children where they did have this kind of coaching, and what that meant for a family long term?
I probably can't speak to research on that. I do know what we hear from families where they say, wow, if I only had known this with the first child, because they may not have found that trusted partner or that appropriate service when they had their first child, and the second child comes around, and there's this notion of, wow, it would have been a lot easier if only I had known. I don't actually know if we have any research or data that's showing different outcomes by.
I have another question that you might have an easier answer to. So you said you've only been able to serve 12 out of 39 counties, and I was wondering if you had more resources. Can you tell me where you would put them, either which counties or which sorts of programs expanding to different areas?
Well, it's interesting. We're sort of in a unique place. I think there's a commitment to evidence-based models, and there's also really a commitment to working in communities with changing demographics and building evidence for things that have been shown to be effective in a community. So we have 23 we've identified in this analysis, and we would really like to begin that work, planning with those communities with the solutions that they want to best meet the needs of their families. Not us choosing the model or approach, but really having the community look at what's available